All right, everybody. Good morning and welcome everyone to our Crypto One-on-One webinar. And thank you all for tuning in with us this morning. And let's wait for a couple of minutes for people to trickle in before getting started. Okay, guys, let's just wait for another minute or so. I think we have international audience today. I see people coming or calling in from the States. Obviously, myself and Vivian, we're based out of Hong Kong. And Adam is calling all the way from LA. And obviously, we've got our Gemini admin and support calling in from their Singapore office as well. Okay, I think we can get started, everybody. My name is Lindane, and alongside with me is Vivian, and we're the co-founders of SatoshiWomen. SatoshiWomen, we advocate crypto literacy for women from all walks of life. So before we start, I'd like to share a few housekeeping reminders. So the first half of the session will be a presentation and introduction to cryptocurrencies and some of the common terminologies you should know. And don't worry, we'll try to keep the technical parts short and simple. In the second half of the session, we'll be jumping in to have a lively conversational Q&A and discussion with the rest of you. So please feel free to submit questions along the way by typing it in the chat box at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And so it's great having everybody here today, and I bet we're all excited to dive in straight into this. But before we get started, we'd like to get a feel of the audience. So on your screen now, you should see a poll come up. So give me a few seconds and feel free to take some time to answer it, and we'll give this 30 seconds. Can you guys see my poll?
No.
Oops. Okay. Awesome. Okay, we'll give it another 10 more seconds. and then we'll share the result. You guys can also feel free to type in the chat box as to why or why not you own any cryptocurrencies. Okay, I think we'll end the poll right now. Okay, can you guys see the result?
Yes.
Awesome. All right, well, I guess the majority own here cryptocurrencies. Excellent. All right, well, I think I'll give the floor now to Vivian, our virtual floor.
Okay, I think without further ado, but again, I think the last housekeeping matter that I have to do, but before that, I just quickly introduce Adam. Adam is the head of product marketing in Gemini. I probably wouldn't be doing any merit actually introducing him, so he has a slide later actually introducing himself. So tell you a lot more about his background and also about Gemini, the company. But obviously, more excitingly, actually, hopefully everybody walks away actually learning a bit more about what crypto is all about. And then I think the last piece before actually Adam jump in, it's those of you who knows what I do, actually in a risk management role before, actually big disclaimer, as in this is not investment advice. We're not making recommendations. So please DYOR, do your own research before actually considering or investing in anything. This is purely for educational only, but feel free actually putting questions in the chat and we'll have probably 20, 25 minutes after the session for questions. So Adam, I'll pass it over to you.
All right, can you see this screen and can you hear me? Those are the two most important questions of the night.
Yes.
Okay, great. So hey everyone, nice to see you all, meet you all. I love doing one-on-one conversations with people who are new to crypto. I find I often learn hopefully as much as everyone else by all the excellent questions people ask. So yeah, really been looking forward to this, happy to be here. Let's jump into it. This is me, I'm Adam. I manage the product marketing team here at Gemini. What does that mean? So I work with a group of people who are basically focused across all our products on understanding why people use them, what they care about, what they need, why they might choose a competitor, and then making sure the folks who build the products get that information and the folks who market the products get that information, and then we can tell you about all the wonderful things we can do for you. So that's a bit about what I do here. In terms of Gemini, what are we? At our core, we are a crypto exchange and custodian. So what does that mean? It means we've built technology that makes us really good at holding on to digital assets like cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, Ether, etc. And then we've built a platform that allows people to exchange them with each other on top of it. So, hey, I have some dollars, I want to buy some Bitcoin, let me exchange that Bitcoin for dollars. Hey, I have some Ether, I want to buy some Dogecoin, let me exchange that Ether with someone who wants to get rid of their Dogecoin and get some Ether. That's at the core of what we do. And we have a handful of other services built around that, ways to lend cryptocurrency in our Gemini Earn product. In some jurisdictions, we're launching a credit card that allows people to get crypto back on their spend. But the bottom line is we do a lot of the same things that a typical retail financial institution would do for you, but specific to the idiosyncrasies of crypto. We're in, I believe, over 60 countries now around the world. This slide is out of date as we're growing quickly. I think we now have over 800 employees. And I think the most fun fact about us is we were founded by twin brothers, Tyler and Cameron Winklevoss, who are relatively well known in the crypto world for making a big bet on Bitcoin way back before 2014. And then they founded the exchange in response to needing a secure, regulated, institutional grade place to manage and exchange that. So that's sort of our founding story. We're not going to talk a ton about Gemini today. We're going to talk about crypto itself. So we'll start by understanding what is Bitcoin, which is the first and prototypical cryptocurrency. And then we'll talk about some quirks of what makes Bitcoin Bitcoin, what makes it different from some other types of cryptocurrencies, primarily Ethereum. And then we'll do a bunch of Q&A. So with that said, let's jump into it. So what's Bitcoin? Where does it come from? How's it created? You've probably heard of Bitcoin, or you may have heard of Bitcoin being called digital gold or cash for the internet. These things don't tell you a ton about how it works. So let's talk about what it is. But first, let's talk about what it's not. So Bitcoin is not physical, and it's also not really a digital object either. But really at its core, it's just a representation of value in the form of a record of ownership. And that record of ownership is recorded on this database that's called the Bitcoin blockchain. To understand a bit how that works, we need to understand this Bitcoin blockchain and what it's comprised of, which is essentially three things. One is the Bitcoin blockchain itself, which is this very particular type of database. The second thing is the data that's recorded in that database. So these are Bitcoin transactions. And then third is how do those transactions get there? So we'll talk about these nodes, or the entities that verify, secure, and record these transactions onto the Bitcoin blockchain. So the blockchain, the Bitcoin transactions on the blockchain, and the nodes that record the transactions onto the blockchain. So the Bitcoin blockchain itself, like I said, is simply a public record that has some very unique attributes that make it incredibly secure and trustworthy. This public record doesn't exist on one computer. It exists on literally tens of thousands of computers that are distributed all over the world, and they store the record simultaneously, and it's updated in real time. These individual computers that maintain the Bitcoin network are often called nodes. And what's cool is that there's no one person or business that control these nodes, which make Bitcoin decentralized. There's not a particular party that can, let's say, censor the transactions or prevent people from using it. I'm going to hand wave over some of the idiosyncrasies in terms of exactly how the Bitcoin blockchain works in the interest of time. But I think a good further reading follow-up, if you really want to dig into it, is you can read the Bitcoin white paper. It's only about, I think, like 12 pages long, and it's dense, but it is short. And so if you really do want to get into the quirks of exactly how this works, highly recommend that as follow-up reading. So we've talked about the blockchain itself and how it runs on these various nodes that talk to each other. Now let's talk about the transactions. So these transactions are not different, or not particularly different from the other financial transactions that you make in your life that you're very familiar with. They're just a transfer of value. It could be dollars, it could be real estate from one person to another. But instead of routing these transactions through a bank or an escrow service or another financial services provider, these transactions are validated, recorded, and secured directly on this Bitcoin blockchain, this specialized type of database, and they are recorded there by all these nodes that maintain these records on the network. And so this process, this special process of recording these transactions onto the Bitcoin blockchain, is done in such a way that it makes the data extremely secure and extremely verifiable. So the last bit that I want to talk about here, as I mentioned before, is these nodes, these entities that verify and secure the transactions. So these nodes, they're going to record the transactions in a public way. Anyone can look at the data on the Bitcoin blockchain. And like I said, these records exist on thousands of computers all around the world simultaneously, updated in real time. And we will have a Q&A session at the end of this, I promise. All right, so one question that comes up is, so if anyone can put the transactions onto the blockchain, if anyone can record the data onto the blockchain, well, can't you just make stuff up? What's preventing people from essentially behaving fraudulently? And the key to that is this term that you hear about called mining. People think about mining oftentimes as, oh, well, I want to mine Bitcoin. I want to show up so I can get Bitcoin for myself. But really the core purpose of mining is to make it effortful, to make sure that there is work required in order to add new transactions to the blockchain. And we'll come back to that in a bit when we talk about proof of work. So how are Bitcoins created? This is where the mining comes into place. There's a special subset of these nodes that we've been talking about that take unsecured blocks of data, sort of the latest batch of new transactions that people who are using the Bitcoin blockchain want to record onto the chain. And they're going to do a couple of things to batch these lists of new transactions into a block and to secure that block onto the blockchain. The first thing they do is they take every transaction in the block and they run it through a specialized algorithm called a hashing algorithm. It takes each transaction and it creates a unique identifying digital signature for it. That's 64 letters and numbers long. And like I said, this is called a hash. Hashes are really cool and they're simpler than they seem at first. So let's talk through exactly how this works. What you see on the screen here is 3 sort of imagined blocks. What data are we storing? We're not storing Bitcoin transactions. We're just storing a few people's names, including the Ninja Turtles. So we're going to, so in order to make the blockchain work, we need to compress this data into a hash. And so you see in the first block, there's this 2C7540, this long string of letters and numbers. The idea is that that is a unique set of letters and numbers based on the data going into the block. So John, Paul, George, Ringo results in the hash you see. Dorothy, Rose, Sophia, and Blanche results in a completely different hash. So you can say that the hash is deterministic. And so what that means is if every block has unique data in it, every block is going to have a unique hash. What the blockchain does is it takes the hash from the prior block and it adds it to the new block that the miner is writing. And since the data that goes into the block contains the hash of the prior block, and since the data in the prior block contains the hash of the block that is before that, this has this cascading effect where if you are to change any previous piece of data in the blockchain, it's going to mess with or change the hash of the most recent block. And the result of that is that without having to go back and read the entire history of every block in the blockchain, you know whether someone has tampered with the information in the blockchain because it's going to result in a different hash for every block that comes after the block that contained the transaction that someone tampered with. I will simply pause on this subject until we get to the Q&A. It's definitely somewhat complex, but hopefully I've done a not terrible job of walking you through the consequence of using hashes to connect each block to the blocks before it. Oh, there we go. So where does mining fit into this process? The way mining works is a computer that is running the mining software for Bitcoin has to look for a random number called a nonce. And the nonce and the 2 hashes that are in a block, the hash that you put in from the prior block, as well as the hash of the data in the current block, they need to be added together to meet a certain number. And this is just a game that is being played in order to make sure that people don't cheat the system. I wouldn't try to wrap your head around it too directly right now. I think the key takeaway is that the nonce, this random number, plus the hash of the current block need to add up to a certain value in order to maintain the security of the blockchain. And these mining computers are all racing to guess this correct nonce number. So you have to put a bunch of work in as a miner in order to earn the right to add the data to the next block. And this is the competition that all the different nodes that are running the Bitcoin software as miners are entered in order to try to add the next block to the chain. And if they succeed in that race of finding the correct nonce to earn the right to add the next block, then they're rewarded with more Bitcoin that is mined in this transaction. So you can see that mining doesn't exist solely for the purpose of getting more Bitcoins. It's actually a game that these individual mining computers are playing in order to make sure that data is honestly and securely added to the blockchain and can't arbitrarily be added by a node that isn't doing the proper amount of work. So this takes us to the idea of proof of work. Miners will buy or build not just any type of computer like the ones that we're tuned in on, but really specialized computers, which are called ASICs. They'll also develop special algorithms. They'll spend lots of money and time and energy in the form of electricity to run these computers, as I mentioned, in order to find the nonce that meet these special criteria. The first miner that successfully finds the correct nonce, the correct random number, will then be rewarded with the transaction or with a transaction of new Bitcoin that is minted and given to that miner as a reward. So you can see that these miners need to go through a lot of work, so to speak, in order to earn the right to add a new block to the blockchain. And so that's where the term proof of work comes from. Here's a fun fact in the deck. There are only 21 million Bitcoins. Not all of those Bitcoins have been mined yet. And so we're gradually adding more and more Bitcoins until around the year 2140, as this sort of gradual process of mining more Bitcoins until the full supply is available. So that's proof of work, which is how the Bitcoin blockchain maintains consensus. By maintains consensus, I mean how it keeps each copy of the ledger identical across these tens of thousands of computers that run the Bitcoin software that are not all controlled by the same person. So proof of stake is a different approach to maintaining consensus. Instead of actually doing the work of spending the electricity and guessing this nonce and making sure that the hash plus the nonce equals the correct value, with proof of stake, a miner just needs to post a bond or put into escrow a large balance of funds of the reward currency that they wouldn't want to lose. An example of this is the new version of the Ethereum network that Ethereum is in the process of migrating to. What will happen there is a miner, or a validator as they're called, will need to post essentially a bond or put into escrow 32 Ether, and then they don't have to do any work. They just have to behave honestly, or they will be, the term is slashed, but they will be slashed and they will lose some of the stake that they've put forth to participate. So I mentioned Ethereum. Let's talk about what that is. So Bitcoin was the original blockchain that was developed, came to prominence in the late 2000s. Ethereum was a subsequent invention. It's similar to Bitcoin in that it's also a blockchain, but the idea was that this blockchain, instead of just being used to record and send value, would also have the capability to run any type of software on top of it. And so one way to think of Ethereum as a blockchain is it's a decentralized computer. So it does exactly what Bitcoin does, except for instead of just recording who sent what money to whom, you can run any piece of software on this unstoppable world computer. And the native currency of the Ethereum blockchain is this asset that is called Ether. These programs that are run on the Ethereum blockchain are often called smart contracts, and we'll talk about them in a little bit. What Ethereum allows you to do that is so significantly different from Bitcoin is directly on the Ethereum blockchain, you can build what are called token-powered networks. And these are applications that have the same sort of crypto incentivized economics that exist directly within the Bitcoin blockchain and the Ethereum blockchain, but these run in sort of mini networks that run on top of the Ethereum blockchain. And the tokens that power these networks are called ERC20 tokens. They have their own ledgers, their own records of transactions, and then they all settle to the ultimate security given by the Ethereum blockchain. And there are a million different use cases when you see that there are thousands of cryptocurrencies that you might choose to invest in. A lot of these exist as ERC20 tokens that run on top of Ethereum around all different types of use cases. Some of them are specifically for sending money between people, so they serve a similar function to what the Bitcoin blockchain exists to do. And then some of them could be around, I mean, it's literally any sort of specialized purpose that you could imagine. So let's just use an example. Let's say that your company agreed to invest in a startup as long as they meet their annual revenue goals. Rather than needing to get a group of people together to sort of vote and press the button, you could write a piece of code, a smart contract, to use the term I used a minute ago, that would automatically release a payment conditional on that goal being met. And you wouldn't need to involve your bank, you wouldn't need to involve an attorney, you wouldn't need to do due diligence. This smart contract or code would simply reference some of the data that's recorded on the Ethereum blockchain. And as long as all the triggers or if statements were met, it would automatically send funds to the address or wallet of this sort of company we just imagined. You could even write code that would cause just a portion of the funds to be released. If the company, let's say, met 75% of their revenue goals, you would send them 75% of the funds. And that's just one sort of example. I want to talk about one other type of ERC token. It's not an ERC20 token, it's an ERC721 token. This is the type of token that is commonly associated with NFTs. And the key distinction here is just that ERC20 tokens are fungible. Each one of them is essentially identical to and just as good as any other ones. It's kind of like if I have $1 in one hand and $1 in another hand, I don't care which dollar I have. They're all the same to me. They are fungible with each other. ERC720 tokens are non-fungible tokens. That's where the NFT acronym comes from. And so if you think about a print of 100 pieces of art, let's say from your favorite photographer, owning print number 7 or print number 20 is not the same. And so thinking about that distinction is similar to how you might think of the distinction between ERC20s, more like money, and ERC721 tokens, more like non-fungible pieces of art. There's one more case for ERC20 tokens, or tokens in general that run on top of layer 1 blockchains like Ethereum, and that is stablecoins. So stablecoins are tokens that are pegged to the value usually of a fiat currency. And a lot of people use these for trading to achieve liquidity, basically to achieve a risk-off position without having to sell out of their crypto on a centralized exchange. One particular type of, you can think of it as a stablecoin that's being developed, are central bank digital currencies. So these are like stablecoins that are issued by a government. So government issued crypto. There are a number of governments that are considering these. Venezuela has gone so far as to actually create one called the Petro, although it hasn't been adopted a ton. China's and Russia's governments both have announced that they are creating digital versions of their currencies. And personally, I think that most countries will probably end up releasing a digital version of their currency at some point in the future, simply because all of these programmable dimensions and smart contracts that I highlighted a moment ago, a currency that's not natively digital is not going to be able to be programmed in that way. And so I think it's a competitive advantage for a country's currency to be issued in a way that allows it to take advantage of the latest in technology. So I don't want to drone on too long with an infinite amount of information in the impossibly deep world of crypto. So let's talk briefly about how to get involved should you want exposure to crypto. So one Bitcoin is worth, I think, around $55,000 USD right now. And there's a common misconception that you need a lot of money to get into crypto. Bitcoin is divisible, I think it's like to 8 decimal places. So you don't need $60,000 to buy Bitcoin. You can buy $5 of Bitcoin. In the case of the Gemini app or website, you could log in and connect your bank account or debit card and literally say, I'd like to buy 10 bucks of crypto. And you would own 0.00001 Bitcoins. And that's fine. It's a great way to get involved. And there's no particular advantage in owning a whole Bitcoin or a whole Ether token in terms of its utility. You're invested at the amount that's right for you if you'd like to be invested less than that. So like I said, I think Gemini is designed to be easy to use at its core. We do have some advanced features within our active trader product that allow you to access some of the advanced order types you may be more familiar with if you're a day trader. But the bottom line is if you're new to crypto, new to investing overall, it's a really easy way to get exposure to Bitcoin, Ether, any of the 60-some currencies that we currently support on the platform. If you are in Hong Kong, we support both USD and Hong Kong dollar. From an ID verification perspective, you can sign up with a single ID for verification. We've got this mobile app I mentioned. And yeah, so hopefully, if you are interested, you find it to be easy to use. With that said, I haven't been looking in the chat in detail, but I have seen a lot of questions come through. So I will kick it back to our lovely hosts to decide exactly how we'll start to tackle this. And I look forward to answering your questions as the night goes on.
Yeah, absolutely. There's actually tons of questions here, Adam. And we also received a number of questions prior to us starting. So let's do this. Okay, that was a really excellent presentation, Adam. Super helpful. Amazing. Okay.
Like I said before, it's a judgment call between going too deep and making sure that you explain thoroughly and accurately. I can see
your eyes. You're like, do I attempt to get deeper into this conversation? I'm glad you have a very good self-restraint.
Thank you. All right, where would you like me to start in terms of Q&A?
Look, I think there's a number of conversations here. Someone was asking, what is nonce? And then someone's commenting, I think it's a node. Do you want to make any distinction between the two?
Yeah, so nonce and node have many of the same letters, but are not the same thing. Nonce is it's just a very particular number that is involved in the process of mining. So you can think of it as if you're trying to guess a number and you don't know what the number is, you're trying to guess the nonce. And that is different from a node. A node is a particular instance of the Bitcoin software running on a computer. Now, some nodes might engage in the activity of mining, which requires trying to guess what the nonce is. But that's the distinction there. And there is a connection between, and I see how they could be easily confused.
Yeah. Awesome. I hope Adam was able to clarify that for you guys. And the other one, Viv, do you wanna choose a question for Adam from the chat box?
Hold on, just going in right now. I don't know actually if Adam wants to comment on, because I think there are a bunch of questions on Gemini itself, sort of the coins offering. I know you touched on, this is not a marketing session for you guys, but I think you went through this a little bit. And then I think there's a question in cold wallet versus hot wallet as well. Do you just want to quickly touch on that, Adam, on Gemini?
Yeah. So what's the Gemini specific question? There's so much in the chat. I'm trying to find it.
Well, I think somebody asked, is it like a Coinbase or is it not? Is it an exchange?
Sure. Yeah. So Gemini is a centralized cryptocurrency exchange. We offer, at least from an exchange perspective, services that are similar to what Coinbase does. Other major players in the space include Binance, FTX. These are places essentially where a user can deposit their assets and then, using our matching engine, be matched with a buyer or seller on the other side of the transaction for that particular pair. I think a distinction that is worth noting is the difference between an exchange and a brokerage. So an exchange is an actual venue, not a physical venue necessarily, but an actual venue where you're offered to buy or sell. And we're always offering to buy and sell when we buy things. When I log on and say, I want to buy $100 of Bitcoin, I am offering to sell $100 in exchange to buy 100 USD worth of Bitcoin. And there's some person on the other side of that transaction doing exactly the opposite. In many cases, you'll see platforms that are no fee platforms. And it's not better or worse, but it's worth noting that these are not necessarily exchanges. These are brokerages. So it is a portal through which you can have the same practical result of acquiring Bitcoin or a cryptocurrency, but it's not exactly the same thing as the service that we offer at our core, which is the ability to very securely custody or hold on to cryptocurrency, and then to match buyers and sellers using an order book on top of that.
That's helpful. I don't know, actually, I'll just keep taking questions, Lindane. I guess there are two separate streams questions. One is more technical on proof of work versus proof of stake. And then I think there's a separate stream that's asking about like, what are independent research? How do you know about actually what to invest in crypto and, sort of Bitcoin versus other more traditional assets?
Yeah, so in the proof of work versus proof of stake distinction, I think conceptualizing proof of work is the idea that you have to expend resources. In the case of Bitcoin, it is that you have to purchase mining hardware and then acquire electricity in order to run the mining hardware. And so there is an actual amount of work or expense or effort that goes into identifying the nonce in order to secure the blockchain. Whereas in proof of stake, rather than you don't have to actually do the work, you just have to commit yourself to economic risk. So you're posting a bond or putting your assets into an escrow. You don't have to actually expend those assets. You just have to put them at risk should you not behave honestly as a node in maintaining the security of the blockchain. If you do want to dig deeper into these topics, I think in addition to the many valuable articles on Gemini's education platform, cryptopedia.com, like I said, reading the white papers for Bitcoin will walk you through a lot of proof of work. I don't know how digestible the white paper or description of the Ethereum 2 upgrade is, so I'm not going to recommend that directly, but there's certainly some good YouTube videos that you'll find comparing proof of work and proof of stake. But yeah, at their core, one of them is having to expend resources in order to secure the chain, whereas the alternative proof of stake is simply having to post collateral and having that collateral be at risk should you not do a good job of securing the chain, but not have to actually spend that collateral and do work.
I think that's probably, very good actually explanation in terms of not getting too technical. I think it's quite easy to understand between the two.
Yeah. I think we're also asked a question here, which I think, this is probably questions from people who's very much used to dealing with TradFi or traditional finance. This question goes like this: when investing in stocks or bonds, there is independent research. How or who produces for various cryptocurrencies?
Yeah, great question. So there are lots of firms that are putting out independent research on cryptocurrencies. I won't point you to a specific provider, but many of the major financial institutions, if you have access to like their reports, are putting out analyses of cryptocurrencies. There are a number of like blockchain analytics companies that also provide data that would allow you to make your own decisions around, how much are people using this blockchain, how secure is the network, how many nodes are running. There are companies like or portals with names including Masari, Glassnode, Dune Analytics, and these are all research tools that you could use to run your own analysis. And the last thing, I think, just in general, I think it's important to remember when you're gaining exposure to these really novel assets and trying to decide which assets you personally believe are likely to, we want assets to appreciate in value when we invest in them, right? That's not controversial. Like personally, I like to put on sort of like an early stage investor hat and think, can I really see the use case for this asset? Can I see a world, 5 years down the road where this is really solving a problem? And I think those are valuable questions to ask oneself. Do you really understand what this is being used for? And can that be explained in a clear way, as opposed to, I don't know, watching a YouTube video that says, I swear the price is going to go to $500. Here's why I think, and then the argument's not really making any sense to you. I think this is good advice for investing in general, but it certainly applies to crypto, where in some cases there aren't as clear sources of research that you already know you trust. And this is how you might form an opinion on your own as to the future of some of these projects and whether or not they're good to invest in.
Fantastic. So I know this is Crypto 101, Adam, and you very briefly touched upon NFTs. So first, my question is Gemini already in the NFT space? And in relation to that, there is a question here as to whether NFT only runs on other blockchain instead of ERC20, like BTC and ETH, e.g. Polygon, if that makes sense to you.
That does make sense. A bunch of parts to that question. If I don't get to all of them, just remind me and keep me honest.
Yeah.
So is Gemini involved in NFTs? Yes. So we have a platform called Nifty Gateway, which is a company we joined forces with through an acquisition back in, I think, 2017, maybe 2018. Nifty Gateway has served as a platform that has broken the careers of a number of prominent NFT artists, including Beeple and Pack. And so if you head over to niftygateway.com, you can browse a whole bunch of NFTs that we've launched on our platform. They're all based on the Ethereum blockchain. So that's ERC 7, some of them are ERC 721s. And then there's another token standard for NFTs, which I believe is 1155 or 1055. That doesn't really make a difference to the end user. But one of the nice things about purchasing through Nifty Gateway is you don't have to own Ether to make the actual transaction. There are some platforms that you might want to purchase NFTs on, and you have to already have Ether in a self-custodial or a non-custodial or self-custodial wallet in order to do that. Purchasing on Nifty Gateway, you can do with a credit card, or you can do with Ether. But it's a nice way that we like to lower the friction involved in accessing some of these crypto assets for people who are new to the space. So that was as Gemini and NFTs. The next question was, are NFTs on other blockchains other than Ethereum? I think, and so the short answer is yes. There are NFT platforms and NFTs being issued on a number of different blockchains, Avalanche, Algorand, Solana, etc., as well as on Ethereum. And there was, I believe, embedded in the question a clarification, seeking clarification about the distinction between ERC20s and ER721s. So those are both Ethereum-based token standards. ERC stands for Ethereum Request for Comment, The idea is that when people want to improve the Ethereum ecosystem, they write a proposal called an ERC or an EIP, and then the community gets together and votes on whether it should be implemented. And so at some point, I guess the 20th proposal was we should have fungible tokens called ERC20s. And then the 721st proposal, presumably, was this idea for a non-fungible token standard. And so these are both standards that were adopted by the Ethereum community, and they both run on the Ethereum blockchain. But yes, there are many other blockchains that support NFTs, including some blockchains that are built solely for the purpose of supporting NFTs, and they're not really intended to do anything else except for to secure NFTs and allow them to be traded.
Excellent. Hey, Adam, since you're talking about NFTs, right? I read in the news that Gemini is starting to get into the metaverse as well. Can you give a one-liner description on what metaverse is? Just one line.
I mean, if you gave me 30 lines, it might be easier. I think of the metaverse as, really, I think that we're all already existing in a kind of crappy version of the metaverse. Like, we talk to people on the other side of the planet on video chat. We look at Google Maps and it gives us, directions and augmented reality. Maybe we put on VR headsets and we play mini golf with our friends. There's a ton of stuff that we already do in a virtual world. And I think when people talk about metaverse, they're just talking about like the enhanced or end state to that. So it's not some fundamentally different place. It is this vision of a future version of human experience where physical reality and digital or virtual reality are better blended. And when people talk about metaverse in the context of crypto, there are simply crypto protocols that are focused on building virtual environments for people to engage with each other in. And, it's early days, but I think, maybe 10, 20, 50 years down the road, there will be a much more seamless blend, between seeing someone in person across the room and, I don't know, doing all the things that we do online. It won't look so different from the real world. That's how I think about the metaverse. I'm sure there are many people who would disagree with me, but that kind of like connects the two for me.
We can probably do a metaverse 1-on-1 next time. That would be interesting.
Invite me to that one. I look forward to learning from whoever you get to speak.
Absolutely. I was just talking to a friend yesterday that we should be doing metaverse 1-on-1. There's a lot of things that we can talk about there, but watch this space. You guys can follow us at SatoshiWomen and IG, Twitter, on our website. Segueing there. And we'll probably take one more question from the audience here. And then we'll probably talk a little bit about who SatoshiWomen is. And also, Adam, we'd like to pick your brains in terms of whether or not you still see gender disparity in this space. But before we get into that, let's read one more question here. How risky is it to hold Bitcoin on an exchange and not on a cold wallet?
Great question. So there are different risks associated with different ways of custodying Bitcoin. And I think a nice way to think about them is picture that you've just purchased a gold bar that's worth, I actually don't know how much a gold bar is worth. Let's say a gold bar is worth $10,000. What are you going to do with it to keep it safe? If you keep it safe under your bed, like that your bank's not going to run off with it. But also if you keep it safe under your bed, you don't know how good of a job you are going to do at keeping your bedroom secure. So there are different risks associated with any type of custody. In the case of an exchange, this is a company that has built its business around having the right protocols to appropriately secure crypto assets. And in general, I think you can have confidence that a crypto exchange will probably have superior security protocols to a casual individual who is not a cybersecurity expert. That being said, that's not a guarantee. So this goes back to the idea of doing your own research. You could look for an exchange that has a long and solid track record. In the case of Gemini, for example, we have, I can't remember which ISO it is, but we have an ISO certification from an international standards body. We have SOC 1 and SOC 2 certifications, which are performed by Deloitte, that ensure that we have proper information security and financial security procedures. And so the idea is they're just different risks in either case. It's hard to opine on exactly which is riskier and how risky it is, but I think it is important to be honest with yourself about your own security knowledge and ability to have excellent cybersecurity hygiene, and make a decision on whether you would like to eliminate the possibility of an exchange running off with your crypto, which I think in many cases is very unlikely if you pick a trustworthy exchange, versus your own ability to make sure that you don't inadvertently, get tricked into revealing your password to someone.
Amazing. What, Adam, you know what? I'll ask you a personal question here. Do you remember the very first time you heard about Bitcoin or crypto?
Yes, I do. I was working at a marketing agency as like a junior coordinator, and someone came up with an idea to see if we could do a stunt where people could mine Bitcoin with a free SoulCycle class. SoulCycle is a popular American spin studio for exercise bikes. They're like, Adam, you're a nerd, go figure it out. And that was the first I heard of Bitcoin, and the rest is history.
Which
we did
year
not
was
end
that,
up,
Adam?
That was 2015, and we did not end up mining any Bitcoin with exercise bikes. But just to sort of put it in Bitcoin terms, so I think I purchased a whole Bitcoin for like $300, and it was worth $375 like a week later, and I said, I have no business owning anything like this, and sold it. So I kind of regret that decision at this point.
Oh, you did? Oh my goodness. Wow.
Yeah.
That's a heartbreak. And especially right now, it's what, 55,000?
Yeah, about that. It's a lot of exercise bikes.
That's fine. Hopefully you've recovered that quote unquote losses by now. Awesome. Well, we have a few minutes left, and really thanks everyone for tuning in today and sticking around with us. And, Adam, you've presented so well. We've recorded this, so I hope I don't lose the recording this time. And we will post this on our YouTube channel, and, we'll remind everyone who signed up on this webinar to where they can access it. So very quickly, we'll do a very quick plug on SatoshiWomen. Again, we're very, very grateful to partner with Gemini today to deliver our crypto 1-on-1. SatoshiWomen supports women in getting in the same access as men to knowledge, opportunity, and resources in order to fully participate in the cryptocurrency sector. What we do is that we provide education, access, and inspiration so that women from all backgrounds can use crypto, blockchain, and digital assets to improve their lives and experiences. We empower them to innovate, to find financial freedom, to create wealth, and to shape professional fulfillment. So, Adam, maybe we can ask a question, and also Vivian, this is from me and Vivian, and we'll also give our 2 cents on this one, is that do you see gender gap in cryptocurrency exist right now? I mean, the quick answer is yes for us, but in your experience, how do you see that in Gemini, perhaps from an employee perspective, and also I would say your users?
Yeah, so I think unequivocally it exists. The question is, what can we do about it? Because I think there are many gender inequalities across the world. And so what does one do in an effort to rectify them? I think we have a lot of conversations internally, both when it comes to hiring, when it comes to product design, when it comes to the organizations that we choose to partner with. At the end of the day, it comes down to pipeline. If we're not making efforts to include people who are new to the space, to include people who are early in their careers, to present information, not just along gender lines, but along any sort of lines in the environments where people are comfortable receiving it, then we're not doing a good job to address those inequities. And that's sort of at the core of what I see as the solution.
Amazing.
What else can I tell you?
No, I think there's a question here from the audience actually relating to this conversation. I think these are from two ladies here. How much knowledge versus interest should one have if applying to a crypto company? And Vivian, obviously you can also answer that.
Well, first of all, get Adam's HR team on them. No, I think, I mean, clearly actually is a really sort of buzzing, really popular topic right now. Actually, everybody's obviously interested in all this development. In terms of how much knowledge, I mean, I don't think actually it differs from applying for a crypto company versus other companies, as in, I think you should do obviously some basic diligence and sort of research. Otherwise, actually, it's going to be hard to get into conversation on whatever like job you're applying. But I think there's just so much stuff out there, so much information available, you know, on YouTube, I think on websites of actually different companies. I think, and even if you just search crypto, you know, jobs and in your area, whatever it is, I think a lot of stuff will pop out. And then of course follow SatoshiWomen on all the stuff that we put out. I think which will give you a much broader perspective on actually the different stream of what crypto means, and you know, from a layman to more sophisticated finance professional, like if you want to get into space, actually what you need to do.
Absolutely. Adam, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, so I think oftentimes to work at a crypto company, the core of what you're doing is crypto related, but the actual work isn't crypto. So like, I'm not a Solidity engineer writing smart contracts. I know a solid amount about marketing. If you're on our security team, sure, there's a significant overlap with crypto, but you know a lot about cybersecurity, or you know a lot about physical security. And so the areas where you have professional experience are just as relevant in many types of crypto companies as they are in any other type of company. If you're on our institutional business development team, for example, you're talking to financial institutions about the same sorts of needs that exist in a lot of traditional financial firms. It's just that the particular asset these companies are looking to engage with is a crypto asset, as opposed to, you know, a physical commodity or a currency or an ETF. So yeah, recognize that you don't necessarily need to have crypto as the number one part of your skill set to add value to a crypto firm. There's all types of jobs in a company like Gemini, and there's all types of jobs in many of our partners and competitors as well.
Yeah, and I'll just add, actually, I did an early session probably a couple of weeks back now on fintech versus banking. If we rerun that, I will probably actually try to put it out there again. I think it's informative, as in how people are assessing and deciding actually the difference between the two, and what skill set and what consideration that people should have between the two.
Amazing. Yeah, well, I guess we only have 1 minute left. Adam, where can they find you and where can they find Gemini?
So I am pretty hard to find online, but you can find Gemini at gemini.com, and we have links to all of our social handles and online accounts there. I will connect this back to a question about how can I address avoiding scams and dishonest actors in the space generally. I think it's really important to go to trust anchors for your information. And so if you know that Gemini operates gemini.com and that you are indeed on Gemini's site, and that's a great way to find our social accounts, to link directly to there, rather than, you know, going onto Twitter and clicking follow on some account that looks like it might be Gemini. Same thing for you know, any crypto project you're interested in. Go to a major provider like CoinMarketCap or CoinGecko, link over to the project's Discord or the project's website or white paper directly from there. It's a nice way, whether it's finding Gemini or finding any crypto project, to make sure that you're lowering the chances that you're going to get duped into some sort of scam, and instead are getting the actual official accounts of an organization.
I'll just add lastly, like be skeptical on any direct messages on Discord, particularly because it happens every day. Scammers, just rely on the main channel. I think getting stuff, because I think there are like organized hackers every day. And if it sounds too good to be true, it's a scam.
Yeah, it's a general rule. No one is finding random people on the internet in order to send them free ether.
Yeah. So free prices, free NFTs, actually doesn't happen. So just be aware.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, everyone. Thanks again, Adam and Team Gemini, for organizing this. And I hope to see you all again very soon. I think one of our Gemini admins just posted their Instagram account and Telegram. And we will see you guys very soon.
All
Thanks
right.
for having
Great
me.
day,
Thank you.
evening,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Bye, everyone.
Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.